In a modern city where social tensions run high, the bus was crowded with men and women in a hurry, each absorbed in their own thoughts. Samuel, an elderly black man with graying hair and a slow gait, stepped onto the vehicle, an old, worn jacket draped over his shoulders. Despite his frail appearance, his eyes gleamed with wisdom earned through years of life. As he made his way down the narrow aisle, Samuel felt the weight of people's gazes on him. The crowd was primarily composed of young professionals, impatient and often indifferent to the realities of others. At the back of the bus, Alex, an ambitious businessman in an expensive suit, noticed Samuel. The arrogance in his gaze revealed his disdain for those he deemed inferior. "Look at this," Alex exclaimed with a smirk. "A man like that should be retired, not hanging around on a bus. What kind of life has he even lived?" The bus passengers watched the scene unfold, shocked but silent. Alex continued his taunts, expecting a reaction from Samuel. But Samuel remained calm, refusing to engage with the provocations. This stoic behavior irritated Alex further, prompting him to double down on his mockery, determined to assert his supposed superiority. "Tell me, old man, how many paychecks did it take you to afford that fancy jacket?" Alex sneered, laughing loudly. Nervous chuckles from a few passengers mixed with his arrogance, but most looked away, unwilling to get involved. Samuel stood still, closing his eyes briefly, as if drawing strength from his memories. Frustrated by the lack of response, Alex approached Samuel with a confrontational air. "You should be grateful someone like me is even talking to you. In my world, people like you don't matter. You should consider yourself lucky." What Alex didn't know was that Samuel was, in fact, the father of his boss, a respected community leader, former teacher, and civil rights activist who had touched countless lives. Some passengers on the bus recognized Samuel, and murmurs began to ripple through the crowd. One of the passengers, a young man who had once been one of Samuel's students, suddenly stood up to defend the elderly man. "Excuse me, but I can't stay silent," he declared in a strong voice, drawing everyone's attention. "You have no idea who you're insulting. This man here is Samuel. He was my high school teacher and taught me more than any textbook ever could. He's a man of values who dedicated his life to uplifting others." The passengers' faces shifted from disbelief to curiosity. Alex, now confused, frowned, trying to mask his discomfort. The young man continued, "Samuel always believed in education, equality, and the dignity of every person. He inspired generations of students to fight for their rights. And here you are, mocking him because he doesn't fit your image of success." Murmurs of support spread throughout the bus. Other passengers, moved by the young man's words, nodded and shared their own stories. "Yes, I was in his class too," said an older woman. "He taught me to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard." Alex, now cornered, tried to maintain his composure. "That doesn't change what he is." "He's just an old man on a bus," he retorted, though his voice wavered slightly, betraying his unease. Finally, Samuel spoke in a gentle yet firm tone. "It's true that I'm no longer a man of business or power. But I'm proud to have planted seeds of change, and those seeds continue to bear fruit. A man's wealth is not measured by his bank account, but by the impact he has on others." The passengers, moved, began clapping softly, creating an atmosphere of solidarity on the bus. Alex, realizing he had lost the crowd's favor, slumped in his seat, his arrogance crumbling under the weight of the truth. "You should apologize," murmured another passenger, an older man with a weathered face, who also stood up. "Samuel isn't just a man. He's a symbol of what's good in our community." Feeling isolated and uncomfortable, Alex shrank into himself, avoiding the other's eyes. The bus continued its journey, and Samuel, with a faint smile, looked at the young man who had defended him so courageously. "Thank you, young man. You didn't just stand up for an old man, but for the values of respect and dignity. That means more than you can imagine." The bus reached its destination, and as the passengers disembarked, a sense of camaraderie lingered in the air. Alex, however, remained seated, his head lowered, realizing he had lost much more than a simple confrontation. He had lost the chance to learn and grow. Before leaving the bus, Samuel turned back one last time. Never forget, young people, that every interaction is an opportunity to learn. Listen, learn, and respect those around you, for everyone has a story worth hearing. The next morning, as Alex headed to his boss's office, he couldn't stop thinking about the incident on the bus. His thoughts were scattered, haunted by the young man's words and Samuel's steady gaze. He felt both ashamed and frustrated, but he had no idea what awaited him at work. Upon entering the building, Alex greeted his colleagues absent-mindedly, his mind elsewhere. When he arrived at his boss's office, he was startled to see Samuel sitting in a chair, chatting with his boss, a respected figure in the business world. Alex, perfect timing, his boss exclaimed as he saw him enter. I wanted to introduce you to someone special. This is Samuel, my father. Alex turned pale. The words echoed in his head, and he froze, realizing he was face to face with the man he had humiliated on the bus. Samuel looked up and gave Alex a warm smile, but Alex couldn't meet his gaze. Guilt overwhelmed him as he fully grasped the impact of his actions. Hello, Samuel. Alex managed to stammer, his voice betraying his discomfort. Good morning, Alex, Samuel replied calmly. I've heard many good things about you. Alex grew increasingly uncomfortable, haunted by memories of his mocking behavior. His boss continued, Samuel just told me about his work in education and his efforts to support the youth in our community. He's truly made a difference in so many lives. Alex realized he could no longer ignore his arrogance. With a sigh, he forced himself to speak. Listen, Samuel, I'm sorry for the way I acted yesterday on the bus. I didn't know who you were, and I sincerely apologize. Samuel looked at him, his expression peaceful. Thank you, Alex. What matters is that you recognize how our words and actions can affect others. Every day, we have the opportunity to choose compassion over disdain. Despite Samuel's kind words and sincere forgiveness, the incident on the bus had not gone unnoticed. Witnessed by several passengers, the scene quickly spread throughout the town. Those who had seen it recounted the story to their friends, and within days, Alex's arrogant behavior towards Samuel became a topic of discussion among public transit users. The bus drivers, in particular, were deeply moved by the story. Many of them had experienced disrespectful comments themselves or had witnessed acts of disregard toward elderly or vulnerable passengers. In solidarity with Samuel, who symbolized more than just another passenger to their community, they decided to take a firm stand. The day after Alex's meeting with Samuel at the office, Alex headed to his usual bus stop. As he boarded the bus as usual and handed his ticket to the driver stared at him for a moment, then closed the bus doors without a word. The bus drove off, leaving Alex on the sidewalk, confused and stunned. Thinking it was a mistake, Alex walked to the next bus stop, hoping another bus would take him to work. However, the same scenario repeated itself. Every time he tried to board, the drivers refused to let him on. One morning, as Alex attempted once again to catch a bus, the driver gave him a stern look and said calmly, "We know who you are. And until you learn to respect our passengers, you are not welcome on our buses." Alex was shocked. He hadn't expected his behavior on the bus to have such far-reaching consequences. He realized that his actions had created ripples much larger than he had anticipated. Desperate, Alex decided to visit Samuel to explain the situation. He hoped Samuel might speak to the drivers and convince them to allow him back on the buses. When he arrived at Samuel's home, he found him sitting calmly in his garden, surrounded by books and mementos from his teaching career. Samuel, Alex began hesitantly, I don't know what to do. I'm really sorry for what happened on the bus, truly. And now, the drivers refuse to let me on. Can you do some things? Samuel looked up at Alex, his gaze filled with wisdom and compassion. Alex, forgiveness doesn't mean others will forget what happened. What you're experiencing now is a consequence of your actions. The drivers, like many people, saw in me someone they respect, but it's not just about me. It's about respect for all passengers, for everyone who boards those buses. Alex lowered his eyes, ashamed. I understand that now, but I didn't think it would go this far. I want to make amends, but I don't know how. Samuel rose slowly and approached Alex. Respect is earned through sincere actions, not just words. Perhaps it's time for you to do something for the community, to show that you've changed. Inspired by Samuel's wisdom, Alex took his advice to heart. He decided to get involved in community work, particularly in programs supporting the elderly and underprivileged. Gradually, he rebuilt his reputation. The bus drivers, observing his efforts and recognizing his genuine commitment to becoming a better person, eventually allowed him back on the buses. Samuel, for his part, watched the transformation with quiet satisfaction. He knew Alex still had much to learn, but he was confident that the path to redemption began with a single step. And Alex had just taken that step. In this story, Alex, an arrogant businessman, discovered that a person's value lies not in their appearance or social status, but in the impact they have on others. Samuel, the elderly man Alex had belittled on the bus, turned out to be a respected and beloved figure, not only as the father of Alex's boss, but also as someone who had dedicated his life to education and the well-being of the community. Through this unexpected encounter, Alex learned a lesson in humility and respect that transformed him. This story reminds us that every person we meet has a story, a life, and that our actions can either harm or inspire.